Imagine earning, I don't know, $160,000 a year as a household.
Which is a very solid income, right?
Right. You have zero debt, you've paid all your taxes, and you're finally looking to upgrade your home. But then the government essentially tells you that you are legally too poor to buy the budget condo designed for your exact income bracket.
I mean, it sounds like a total paradox, but it is the mathematical reality for thousands of households right now.
Upgrading from an HDB flat to private property isn't just a simple walk across a bridge anymore. It's far more like navigating a pressurized airlock.
That's a great analogy, actually.
Yeah, you have to perfectly equalize the pressure, balancing your timeline, your cash liquidity, and tax laws before opening that second door.
Because if you don't, the whole financial system just blows.
Exactly. And that is exactly where you, our listener, might be standing today. You're likely a Singaporean homeowner whose HDB flat is at, or maybe nearing, its minimum occupation period, the famous MOP.
Or perhaps you're just mapping out a private property upgrade timeline, trying to figure out if you can actually make the jump without, sabotaging your financial future.
Which requires an incredibly clear-eyed look at the data, because the landscape has fundamentally shifted.
Oh, absolutely. The formulas that worked for an upgrader in 2020 or 2021 simply do not apply to you in 2026.
And that is our mission for this deep dive. We're looking past the flashy property headlines to walk you through the exact numbers, the hidden structural risks, and the actual strategies of upgrading to a private property this year.
Think of this as your practical roadmap, completely stripped of the sales pitches.
Right, we're pulling directly from the 2026 Singapore HDB Upgrader Strategy Guide, the latest URA and HDB market data, alongside expert analyses on new launches, shifting buyer demographics, and the mathematics of lease decay.
But to start, before we even look at what you might want to buy, we have to understand the massive financial leverage you are likely sitting on right now.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the year 2026 is seeing an estimated 5,000 to 6,000 HDB units hitting their 5-year MOP mark.
Yeah, and if you zoom out to look at the broader pipeline, we've seen over 11,000 flats reaching MOP in the North region alone across recent years.
Which is just a massive wave of potential upgraders holding highly liquid assets.
Exactly. And these 5-year-old units are, they're the absolute darlings of the resale market.
Oh, for sure. In 2025 alone, we saw a record $1,598 million HDB transactions.
It's staggering.
But from a purely analytical standpoint, why are buyers willing to pay that kind of extreme premium for public housing?
Well, the premium is driven by a very specific convergence of policy shifts. First off, buyers of a resale MOP flat get to completely skip that 4 to 5 year construction wait of a new build-to-order or BTO flat.
Right, you get immediate keys.
Yes. And second, and structurally more important, they avoid the strict new public housing classifications.
Oh, right, the Prime and Plus models.
Exactly. Under the recent Prime and Plus BTO models, buyers are hit with a 10-year lock-in period.
10 years is a long time to be stuck.
It is. Plus, there's a strict income ceiling for future resale buyers and, a subsidy clawback when they eventually sell.
So the older MOP flat is essentially a grandfathered-in golden ticket.
Yeah, you get a relatively brand new home, minimal lease decay, modern renovations, and absolutely none of the new 10-year lock-in headaches or resale restrictions.
Makes sense. And that intense demand creates the equity you're sitting on today.
Right, but let's walk through the actual upgrader math from our sources, because equity on paper isn't the same as cash in hand.
Let's do it.
Let's say your original HDB purchase price was $400,000. Today, because of this MOP premium, its current resale value is, let's say, $1.1 million.
I mean, a $700,000 gross profit looks incredible.
It does, but I know the Central Provident Fund, the CPF, complicates this heavily.
Right, we have to deduct the liabilities.
Yes. Let's assume your outstanding bank or HDB loan is $150,000. Next is the CPF refund.
Oh, this is the one that catches people out.
It really does. When you sell, you must return the principal amount of CPF used to pay for the house, plus the accrued interest.
And that accrued interest is the silent killer of cash proceeds, right?
Exactly. It's the 2.5% interest your money would have earned if it just sat in your CPF ordinary account, compounded over the years you owned the flat.
So it adds up fast.
It does. Let's peg that total CPF refund at $200,000. When you clear the $150,000 loan and the $200,000 CPF refund, you are left with net cash proceeds of roughly $750,000.
Okay, $750,000 in pure cash liquidity. That is an enormous amount of capital to deploy.
It is, but let's see how that actually converts to purchasing power in the private market today. A target private condo for a family in today's market is realistically $2 million.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. The required 25% down payment is $500,000, which you can comfortably cover with your cash proceeds and the CPF funds that were just refunded to your account.
Right, so far so good.
But here comes the reality check. You now need a bank loan for the remaining $1.5 million.
Okay, and at what rate?
At a 3.5% interest rate over a 25-year tenure, your new monthly mortgage is going to be roughly $7,500.
Wait, a $7,500 monthly mortgage on an average upgrader household income, which our sources put at a combined $12,000 to $16,000 a month. That seems exceptionally tight on paper.
It definitely sounds like a lot.
Like, are we looking at a demographic that is just structurally house poor? Or is there a mechanical reason why this doesn't completely break the bank for these families?
It's the mechanics of the CPF system that make it viable, actually. You have to remember two things.
Okay.
First, their old HDB mortgage is entirely retired, so that previous monthly cash burn is just gone.
Right, that frees up some capital.
Second, their ongoing monthly CPF ordinary account contributions from that $12,000 to $16,000 combined income will actively service a significant portion of that new loan. Because employers also contribute to CPF, the actual out-of-pocket cash top-up each month from their take-home pay is significantly lower than the headline $7,500 figure.
That reframes the entire leap. It's less of a terrifying jump and more of a reallocation of existing mandatory savings.
Exactly.
But like we mentioned with the airlock metaphor, the monthly cash flow only works if you perfectly execute the transition.
Right. You don't just, hand over the keys to your HDB and instantly unlock your condo.
No, there is a massive tax hurdle right in the middle.
You're referring to the additional buyer's stamp duty, or ABSD?
Yeah, it is undeniably the most stressful logistical hurdle of the upgrader journey. Let's talk about the reality of that 20% ABSD tax.
Because this is where the airlock depressurizes for a lot of people.
For sure. For a Singaporean buying a second residential property, the government levies a 20% tax on the purchase price.
Right.
On that $2 million target condo we just mapped out, 20% is $400,000.
Yeah.
And just to clarify the mechanics here, this isn't a fee you can roll into your mortgage, and you cannot tap your CPF for it, right?
Correct. This is liquid cash you need on hand at the moment of purchase. You literally have to write a check for $400,000.
That's insane.
Now, the government does have a remission rule. You can get that $400,000 fully refunded to you, but only if you legally complete the sale of your HDB flat within 6 months of collecting the keys to your new condo.
Which forces every single upgrader into a rigid strategic framework. You basically have two operational choices.
Exactly.
Option A is the sell-first strategy. You sell your HDB, bank the cash proceeds, rent a temporary place, and then take your time searching for your ideal private condo.
Option A is the mathematically safe route. Because you have legally disposed of your HDB before signing the papers for the condo, you technically do not own a property at the time of purchase.
Right, so no ABSD.
Exactly. You do not trigger the 20% ABSD at all.
Safe, yes. But let's look at the friction involved. You are moving your entire life twice. You are paying for storage units.
It's exhausting.
And you are burning money on rent for 6 to 12 months, which yields zero equity. And honestly, the biggest systemic risk here
is that you are out of the market.
Exactly. If private property prices rise by 5% while you are sitting in a rental unit waiting for the perfect layout, your purchasing power has just permanently degraded.
Which is exactly why many lean toward option B, the buy first strategy.
Walk us through that.
You buy the private unit you want right now, locking in the current price. You pay the $400,000 ABSD upfront in cash, and then you rely on the resale market to clear your HDB within that 6-month window to get your remission.
So what does this all mean? The risk profile on option B is staggering. Timeline management becomes your single biggest point of failure.
Oh, absolutely.
What if your HDB takes 7 months to sell because the macroeconomic climate suddenly softens? What if your buyer's loan falls through at the last minute and delays completion?
That happens more often than people think.
If you miss that 6-month deadline by a single day, you lose $400,000. It doesn't prorate. It's just gone.
It is a profoundly high-stakes timeline, and fundamentally it requires immense upfront liquidity.
Right.
If you do not have $400,000 sitting in a bank account ready to deploy on day one, option B isn't even a choice you get to make. You are forced into the friction of option A.
So assuming you've miraculously navigated the ABSD minefield and kept your capital intact, you're hit with a new reality. Your money simply doesn't buy what it used to.
No, it really doesn't.
Historically, the executive condominium, or EC, was the holy grail for this exact demographic. It was built as the subsidized stepping stone between public housing and fully private property.
That was the dream, yeah.
But looking at the 2026 data, well, the EC landscape has structurally mutated.
The trajectory is stark. Let's look at the baseline metrics. A decade ago, in 2015, the median price for an EC was $794 per square foot.
Okay.
Fast forward to 2025, and that median price hit $1,754 per square foot. The absolute cost has more than doubled.
Now, on the surface, an EC still looks like a relative deal. Our sources point out that a recent launch, like Revel Tampines, is priced roughly 20% cheaper than a comparable fully private condo in the outside central region.
Right, the developer discount is there.
But there is a massive structural catch embedded in the financing, isn't there? The mortgage servicing ratio, or MSR?
Yes. The MSR is the single biggest barrier to entry for the sandwich class today.
How does it work compared to a normal condo?
Well, unlike a private condo, which uses the total debt servicing ratio, the TDSR, which allows you to use up to 55% of your gross monthly income to service debt, an EC is subjected to the much stricter public housing MSR limit. The MSR dictates that your monthly mortgage payment cannot exceed 30% of your gross monthly income.
Wait, so ECs are supposed to be a stepping stone, but the MSR cap turns them into a stepping stone you aren't legally allowed to jump onto?
I mean, yes. If a bank decides you can safely afford a 55% TDSR for a fully private condo, it does feel like a penalty when the government limits you to 30% for an EC.
It totally defeats the purpose of buying the more prudent, subsidized option.
It is a deliberate, albeit painful, policy design. The MSR was implemented as a strict cooling measure to prevent the sandwich class from over-leveraging on subsidized housing.
To build a buffer against interest rates.
Exactly. But the ironic result in a high-price environment is that it artificially suppresses purchasing power, pricing the exact target demographic out of their own market.
Let's run the math on this sandwich class squeeze to show how brutal that 30% cap is. We established our typical upgrader household earns $12,000 a month.
Right. Under the 30% MSR, their absolute maximum monthly EC mortgage payment is capped at $3,600.
Okay.
In today's interest rate environment, a $3,600 monthly payment only supports a total bank loan of about $750,000.
Wow. So even with a 25% down payment from their cash and CPF, a $750,000 maximum loan caps their total EC purchasing budget at roughly $1 million.
Yes.
But you just said the median EC price is now over $1,750 per square foot. What does a $1 million budget actually secure at a new EC launch today?
Mathematically, $1 million divided by $1,750 per square foot buys you roughly a 544 square foot unit.
544 square feet.
Yeah.
There's essentially a one-bedroom unit, maybe a highly compressed two-bedroom if the developer completely compromises on living space.
Exactly.
Mathematically, a family of 4 upgrading from an HDB simply cannot exist in that footprint. It defeats the entire purpose of upgrading for space. It does.
So if the traditional family upgraders are being structurally squeezed out of the sub 1.5 million bracket by the MSR, who is actually clearing all this inventory?
We are seeing the profound rise of a distinct, incredibly powerful buyer segment, the DINKs. Dual income, no kids.
The DINK demographic is essentially reshaping the market.
They absolutely are. This demographic typically pulls in between $15,000 and $25,000 combined monthly.
Which is high.
Very high. And because they do not have children, their financial architecture looks entirely different. They have zero childcare costs, no future tuition fees, and crucially, they face zero pressure to buy property within a 1-kilometer radius of a popular primary school.
That lack of a school radius requirement gives them an incredible amount of geographic flexibility. They aren't tied to the suburban OCR estates at all.
Exactly. They actively prioritize location, lifestyle, and a city fringe address over raw square footage.
So they're buying smaller units in better locations. Yeah, they are moving right into the rest of Central Region, the RCR, and even the core Central Region, the CCR. They're the ones snapping up the one-bedroom plus study and compact two-bedroom units.
Making up for the lack of foreign buyers, maybe?
Precisely. Recent cooling measures slapped a massive 60% ABSD on foreign buyers, effectively taxing foreign investment out of the mainstream market. The DINKs have seamlessly stepped into that vacuum to replace them in that sub 1.5 million investment and own stay bracket.
That is a fascinating demographic shift. The family upgrader is fighting a grueling uphill battle against MSR limits for a suburban EC, while the DINK couple is utilizing their higher TDSR allowance to casually buy a sleek city fringe pad, simply because their capital isn't tied up in daycare.
It completely reframes how we look at demand.
It does. And when an HDB owner hears all of this, the high replacement costs, the ABSD stress, the MSR caps, the most natural reaction is to think, this is too complex, I will just stay in my flat, let my equity sit, and wait a few years for the market to correct.
Which feels like the prudent thing to do, right?
Yeah. In most asset classes, holding cash or a stable asset while waiting for a downturn is a sound strategy.
But the 2026 strategy guide is very clear about this. In the world of Singapore leasehold real estate, waiting is decidedly not a neutral choice. Time literally eats away at your equity.
Oh, this brings us to lease decay.
Yes. We have to look at the mathematical framework the state uses, known as Bala's curve.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's dive into Bala's curve, because this is the concept that catches so many homeowners off guard.
Bala's curve is the valuation model used to determine the remaining value of a leasehold property as it ages over its 99-year lifespan. And the vital thing to understand here is that the value does not decay in a straight, even line.
So you don't just lose 1% of the value every year.
No, not at all. It relies on the concept of discounted cash flow. Essentially, $1 of rental income generated in year 98 of a lease is mathematically worth almost nothing today due to the time value of money.
It's like a cliff edge hidden in plain sight. There's like a gentle slope until you suddenly drop off.
That's a perfect visual. When your HDB flat is 10, 20, or even 30 years old, you are walking on the flat part of the curve. Your property value holds steady and likely appreciates with market inflation.
Okay, but then
You hit the 40-year mark. And suddenly, the ground drops out from under you. The 40-year mark is where the mathematical depreciation accelerates sharply. The remaining years on the lease become exponentially less valuable to the market and to the state.
So if you were sitting in a 35-year-old flat right now thinking, oh, I'll just wait 5 years and upgrade when the kids are older, you are literally scheduling your sale for the exact moment your property drops off the valuation cliff.
Precisely.
That's terrifying.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this phenomenon isn't restricted to just public housing. It dictates the private market just as heavily.
Really? How so?
Well, for instance, bank loan-to-value, or LTV, limits, which dictate the maximum amount a bank is willing to lend a buyer, begin to drop once a private 99-year lease condo crosses the 20-year mark.
Wait, at just 20 years old, banks are already starting to run their risk assessments on the end of the lease.
Yes. The banks are projecting forward to when that buyer will eventually need to sell.
Ah, I see.
So if you wait too long to upgrade, not only does your current HDD lose value, but if your target is an older resale private condo, your future buyer might struggle to secure a full bank loan for it when you eventually try to exit.
This perfectly explains the real-world evidence we are seeing in the source data.
Yeah.
Some central area HDB flats, despite being in highly coveted locations like Tanjong Pagar or Queenstown, are struggling to maintain their premium pricing on the resale market.
Exactly. The buyers aren't ignoring the location, but they are actively calculating the remaining lease and pricing that aggressive lease decay into their offers.
They know that a prime location doesn't stop the mathematics of Bala's curve.
The location sets the ceiling, but the lease determines the floor. Every month you delay, the land beneath your flat reverts a little more to the state. As the lease decays, the pool of future buyers who can legally utilize their maximum CPF limits and secure full bank loans for your property shrinks.
We have covered a tremendous amount of structural ground today. Let's summarize what this all means for you, the listener, standing at the airlock right now.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. The numbers for upgrading are viable in 2026, primarily because your HDB equity is likely at a historic high driven by the MOP premium.
However, actually accessing that equity requires absolute precision. Whether you are navigating the heavy upfront liquidity required for the ABSD timeline, or managing the severe MSR caps if you're targeting an executive condo, there is very little margin for error today.
And most importantly, the cost of inaction is tangible. Every month you wait, your HDB moves closer to that steep edge of Bala's curve.
Yep.
Concurrently, new government land sales are locking in higher base land costs, which inherently sets a higher price floor for future private condos.
Right. The gap you have to jump is slowly but mathematically getting wider. Successful upgrading today is entirely about recognizing these two opposing forces, your aging asset against rising replacement costs, and timing your move before the lines cross.
Which leaves you with one final provocative thought to mull over as you audit your own timeline.
This is a crucial one.
We know the government has announced intentions for the Voluntary Early Redevelopment Scheme, or VRS, for older estates. This is a framework to buy back flats when they hit 70 years old.
True.
But the government has clearly stated that VRS won't even begin to be rolled out until the 2030s, and the actual mechanics of the land buyback valuations are completely unknown.
We have no idea what those numbers will look like.
Right. So ask yourself this. If you were sitting on a 35-year-old flat today, are you willing to bet your retirement on a theoretical framework where the state decides the remaining salvage value of a severely decayed 70-year-old concrete box?
Or do you take control of your peak equity today, braving the complex airlock of ABSD and interest rates before the mathematics of Bala's curve make the decision for you?
It is the ultimate choice between taking calculated autonomous action now or passively accepting the mathematical certainties of tomorrow.
Well said.
Look closely at your numbers, map out your timeline with the specific tax laws in mind, and don't let the ticking clock of lease decay catch you by surprise. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.